Medicare when there's only 2 workers for every 1 retiree. We can't afford Social Security when there's only 2 workers for every retiree. It is quite literally a pyramid. And it's simply unsustainable. It must be reformed.
I agree, there needs to be reform. And actually, it would save us money to reform, especially the healthcare aspect. And as I debated last time, if we reformed healthcare and made it actually a single-payer system,
would reduce costs?
Yes, it would reduce costs. Because we can use countries in Europe as an example. The United States pays like 5 to 6, I think, % more of its GDP than countries in Europe do, at least.
I mean, I mean, you're talking pennies, and we need to be talking $100 bills.
Let's let this gentleman.
Oh, yeah. John, I feel like you haven't been able to talk at all.
I'm perfectly fine with that. I'll cede the rest of my time.
Just be very careful. Are you sure you want to use the countries in Europe as examples? Because they're in a whole crap of trouble right now.
Yeah, there are some interesting economic problems going on in Europe as well. But I will say that a country such as Germany has a very stable government and very stable economy as its own, and its citizens actually are very, very happy. And they're happy with the health care they receive and with the taxes that they're paying.
Not when they bail out Greece, though.
That's a different issue.
Let's talk about Greece. Greece has a massive entitlement program, far more than we have, and they allow it to extend farther and farther. For instance, hairdressers are classified as a risky occupation and allowed to retire a full pension at 50. So, and we can clearly see that Greece has failed. They've been bailed out by the state. So, if we continue on the road that you say we should continue on, won't we end up like Greece eventually?
No, because I don't think that we're even on that path. We don't have people retiring at 50. We just don't have that system. We don't have that cultural value. And like I said, I do think that there needs to be reform, but not in the direction that you're proposing. I think it needs to be federal, and we need to make sure. I mean, I guess retirement age I think is pretty acceptable here. It's not. I think Greece isn't really even comparable.
You still haven't really said anything about how the U.S. government is going to pay for this, because they obviously, it's clear that they're not good with their budget, and they don't really do much good in general, and Social Security is a Ponzi scheme. So I don't know how you.
Well, I have said that it would save us money, so that would be one way of paying. If we were to reform the healthcare system and actually reverse it from a privatized system into a social system, which is the opposite, I think, of what my opponent is debating. And then other than that, we need to readdress spending. As you said, there are problems in the budget, so we need to readdress spending in the budget, and we need to also focus on revenue, because this can't be done by just addressing spending alone.
I should like to emphasize again that the reform proposals I put forth tonight aren't radical in nature. In fact, they're basically conservative. We're trying to take the best aspects of past programs and reconcile them with present fiscal realities. We do believe that the government ought to maintain a basic social safety net. What we don't believe is that our entitlement state should become so bloated that it imposes a massive fiscal burden upon the rest of the public and potentially could result in a fiscal collapse. That's all I have to say, so I will cede the rest of my time to the lady if she wishes to accept it.
We have just a basic philosophical ideological disagreement. I think that federal government needs to efficiently regulate, but also ensure the right of every American to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And this is done by efficiently regulating the system, making sure that we do not retract anything about the system. If anything, we need to make it more inclusive. We need to readdress spending as well as revenue raising, but mainly we need to make sure that every citizen has the right to healthcare, and to Social Security.
So we're now upon the main event, it says here. Occupy Wall Street. The Occupy Wall Street movement has entered into its second month. It is the biggest it's ever been, yet much is debated externally and from within about where it should go from here. So the question is, what does the movement mean to you? What is its message? Is it unified to enact change, or unified enough to enact change, or does it need to seek change within itself? So for the Republicans will be T.W. Arrighi, and then for the Democrats, D.J. Ryan.
Thanks everybody for coming out, and thanks Dr. Tapio and TW. There's something happening across the globe, and it began in a park in the financial district of this great city. The people are standing up against economic injustice. The inequality in this nation is at its highest rate since the 1920s. People are struggling, and the ultra-wealthy are not being asked to stand in solidarity with the less fortunate in this nation. Occupy Wall Street, to me, is a chance for a generation whose future is being squandered by the baby boomer generation to stand their ground and ask for change. The occupiers are trying to give the 99% of people in this nation who aren't protected like an endangered species a chance to live the American dream. Most of the people that are occupying are young college graduates who have no employment opportunities because the upper class would rather pad their bank accounts than create more jobs. We'll hear the Republicans tonight say that we're trying to punish success, but that's just a talking point in the consistent class warfare that they have been practicing since the Reagan administration. We have seen productivity rise by 79% since 1979, but hourly compensation has only increased by 8%. And in fact, the wages of the bottom 20% of workers have fallen by 4%, while the wages of the top 20% have increased by 55%. Since 1997, incomes in the United States have increased by $2,683, but all of this income growth went to the top 10% of earners. Income for the bottom 90% actually decreased. While the top earners were having their incomes increasing, they also were having their effective tax rate decreasing. Households that earn over $1 million are paying an effective tax rate of just above 20%, while the top 400 households are paying an effective tax rate of just above 15%. That's a tax rate increase that's equal to a blue-collar worker. The inequality in the American economy is what is driving this movement, and with the majority of Americans saying that they support OWS, hopefully they'll grow large enough that they'll be able to enact change. With 1% of the nation controlling 34.6% of the wealth, we cannot succeed and will not succeed.
First of all, I'd like to start off by thanking everybody for coming out. So on behalf of the College Republicans, thank you. It's been good so far, although it's slightly unexpected. I'll admit on some topics. I have two words to describe the Occupy Wall Street movement. Misguided and misinformed. Misguided because it's not just Wall Street, or for that matter, the wealthy, who are primarily to blame for the housing market crash that delivered a severe blow to the global economy. It was Washington. Was Banking Greed involved at some level? Yes, of course. But I hate to break it to you, it was the government regulations that led to the bad mortgage deals that sunk Fannie and Freddie. It wasn't Jamie Dimon's fault or Rupert Murdoch's fault, who saw their homes picketed a few weeks ago in one of the most disgraceful acts I've ever seen of blatant class warfare in American history. They actually grew their businesses, and Jamie Dimon almost single-handedly saved the American financial system from going under. He was a good guy in this battle. I say they are misguided because of the way that they have conducted their movement. They have no message other than being angry. They're an odd mix of anarchists, communists, socialists, party seekers, and curious tourists. They seek to divide this country by pointing the finger at those who have achieved success as the source of their own problems. And no one's blaming them, by the way. I'm sorry, but complaining about not finding work as a recent college grad and then camping out in a park for 40 days, leaving it a mess, is not sending the right message to the country or to Washington. The bailouts, the golden parachutes, and the takeoff of the wealth gap can all be tied back to Washington regulations. If they want an idea of how to run a proper movement, look no further than the Tea Party. They marched, demonstrated, and protested, all without a single arrest, I might add. But most importantly, they organized and voted. Have you ever heard of Scott Brown and Bob Turner? They weren't supposed to happen. How easy the Occupy Wall Street crowd overlook our most fundamental right in this country. Instead, they seek to provoke, divide us, and offer no creativity or solutions. They just seek to finger point, and that should never get you anywhere in America. Thank you.
I'm really interested in how government regulation caused the...
In Jimmy Carter, he passed the Community Housing Act. It's 2000. No. Clinton doubled down on it.
I'm not talking about housing.
It was the mortgage-backed securities packaged together of the low-grade ones, which were the subprime mortgages, which was a government mandate, which were packaged together, sold as securities, bought by Fannie and Freddie, caused the implosion because house pricing, because a lot of them defaulted. They weren't able to pay it. A lot of them had balloon rate mortgages, so they weren't able to pay it back. That led to a crash in the mortgages, a failing of the securities, taking out the whole bottom row of the deck of cards and failing Freddie and Fannie. That's tied directly back.
Wasn't going to be my question, because as we saw last debate, I agreed with your that was President Clinton's worst thing. I was going to say how government regulation created such a large inequality gap, which is what I think is the main crux of Occupy Wall Street's argument. I think it was President Reagan and President Bush too who decided that, you know what, the wealthy deserve to be subsidized. Like I said last time, there's only two people that have had socialism in this country, the wealthy and corporations.
We did this last debate when we went back to, and then at the end it boiled down to, well, they're not paying their fair share, the upper bracket. Then we devolved into the Bush tax cut debate, and it was brought up, well, you'll make $700 billion, which actually isn't true because $700 billion is the size of the entire Bush tax cut, so if you're going to let the whole thing expire, you're actually raising taxes on everybody, then at the end of the day, it's all a big wash. The problem is we've overregulated, and it's cut down on the middle class significantly. We've punished job creators. We have politicians running for the Senate in Massachusetts, basically saying if you're a risk taker, you're a bad person, and you should be punished. Entrepreneurs should be undercut. That's what's hurting the middle class. It's government regulation.
What's hurting the middle class right now isn't the government. It's the fact that the big corporations are sitting on $2 trillion instead of hiring people. It's not because of government regulation.
No, but why do businesses and big corporations sit on big piles? Why are they? Because first of all, balance sheets of big corporations and of banks right now are as clean as they've ever been. They are very low. They're very low on leverage. They're very, very clean balance sheets. So why are they sitting on all that cash? No predictability. Well, they have no idea if next week the taxes are going to go up, or if next week they're going to have to pay more to do X, Y, or Z. There's no predictability.
I think
too much crap in Washington, and Obama is inciting class warfare.
I'm going to also quote you again. Thank you. I'm going to quote you again. Last year, you debated and stated that President Obama has been the best president for Wall Street. And now you actually said that last year, I remember.
Did I verbatim said that?
Yes, you did. And now you're saying
I'm not going to
that he is the worst president for Wall Street, and he's the reason why they're not confident enough to invest in jobs. I mean, I think you can't have it both ways.
All right, hold on. Okay, let's hold on a second, backtrack. Okay, the Dodd-Frank bill is the biggest crippling of business that we have. We have to repeal that. It's absolutely ruining things. And what I've always been is in the critique, and I'm not really sure exactly what I was talking about. And I'm actually not retracting that statement because I think in many ways it can be said to be true, especially in these first 2 years. However, I think, like I said before, people are sitting on mass amounts of money because they don't have predictability. You have the president going out there saying, we got to tax those private jet flying corporation CEOs, which by the way, small caveat, he passed the tax break on private jets. By the way, that was President Obama signed that one into law. But you know, it's this rhetoric of and throwing out these propositions to just raise taxes indiscriminately higher, crush on corporate taxes. And the fact is that they don't want to invest in that.
The tax rate's lower than it has ever been. That's just a fact. And
Bush tax. Where are we going?
Yeah,
Go on.
And I don't know how you can say that. I'm just going to bring up the point that during President Obama, who's been he's my up and downs with him. There's been more private sector job creation in his 4 years than under the whole 8 years of President Bush's administration.
Well, that's quite an argument to make. We have 9.2% unemployment, I think.
I like to say that we
a
have
lot of people
91%
disagree with you.
employment rate, not that we have 9.2% unemployment. That's still
it's been absolutely hovering around the 9% mark this year.
And you can't.
I don't know what
it's a hard thing to.
Let's
are we done?
Yeah, let's open this a question. So
all right, good.
Oh, I was just going to comment before about when you said, why are they sitting on cash and TW?
I got you.
What do you think about the people at Occupy Wall Street? I feel like it is a group, a lot of different kinds of people. But isn't there something to be said about, first off, just people protesting in general against the government and not allowing the government to do the things that they want to do? Because the government will get tyrannical if the people don't show that they will protest.
But you know. It's a problem. You know, it's one thing to be protesting and say, this is why I disagree with you, and here's what we want you to do about it. That's what the Tea Party did. They went out, you know, it didn't always work out for them. You know, Christine O'Donnell won the nomination, the Republican nomination in Delaware. I wish that didn't happen. It did. That's a testament to that, you know, the sort of power that we have as citizens in America. They don't have anything. And it's becoming more and more of a laughingstock as we move forward. Because they're so disjointed. There's, you know, anarchists and communists are never going to agree. You know, people who are, you know, stoned, you know, to the high heavens, they're not going to know what's going on. The fact is, there's nothing unifying about it. And so it discredits them to a bit.
I hate when we paint this portrait of a group like that, oh, you know, Occupy Wall Street, they're a bunch of stoners who are anarchists and communists. I could say, you know, the Tea Party, they're a bunch of racists and they think Obama's Hitler, so they must be a bunch of nut jobs. I know many Tea Party members. They're fine individuals, and I don't think, I mean, they're crazy, but they're fine individuals. There's a lot of Occupy Wall Street guys that are good. I mean, there's, like you said, there's people that are down there for a party. Yeah, there are people like that.
Last debate, you said that Michelle Bachmann and Rick Perry wanted to shoot all illegals on site. You made some pretty over-the-top remarks, and I didn't hold that to you. But I think as this goes on, first of all, and I'm going to reiterate this point again, there's one thing about, first of all, I hate this. If I hear one more Occupy Wall Streeter compare this to the 1960s civil rights movement, I'm just going to pretend they don't exist. Talk about undercutting all the work that African Americans did to achieve equality in this country, and you're going to pair sitting in a park in Manhattan for 40 days banging on bongos comparable? No, it's not.
You can say,
What if it turns out that Occupy Wall Street is somehow being sponsored or financed by foreign military intelligence? And also,
oh my God.
One of the same piece in the 1960s, it was possible foreign involvement over money or sponsorship.
Just out of curiosity, what's the report?
Right, so would your position on the Occupy Wall Street change if it turned out foreign involvement?
It's probably on you.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, my opinion on life on Earth would change if I found out there were aliens.
He said foreign money, I think he was trying to say. Foreign money just from overseas was coming in.
Foreign money comes overseas to support many of the conservative causes. So
you can have entities, private entities in the United States actually running a foreign policy against the United States. So it doesn't have to be necessarily a nation.
I mean,
a nation state. It could be domestic actors.
You could say that about any movement, I think. I don't believe
Well, I'll take that point and kind of carry it in a sort of different trajectory. I mean, when a movement like this keeps going on, people are always going to want to use it for their own gain. Either politicians, companies, or whoever can find a way to exploit it. But what I find so funny about the Occupy Wall Street thing is it has an intrinsically anti-capitalistic tone. Just intrinsically, it's an anti-commerce tone. But I find it so funny that if you go there and you talk to folks or whatever, you'll see them selling merchandise, trying to make money off the fact that we have too much greed in this country. I mean, I'm not really sure where that adds up. But I can't really speak on that sort of hypothetical to answer your question.
I think it's a pretty good thing that we're having a group that's actually not completely, capitalism's up there with Jesus, and because capitalism as
I'd love to hear a better alternative.
I think we need some restrictions on capitalism instead of free market. I like when I could use this argument.
But that's what caused this to happen.
This is one of my favorite times when I can use an argument against a group of people who love to co-opt the Christian religion. Christianity is probably the biggest force against capitalism.
Okay, all right, no.
The Catholic Church put out
no. We are not getting into this discussion. No. That is no. Nice try.
I have a question. It's for both of you. I actually agree with what
Smart woman right there.
She's out of the club.
In Massachusetts,
Yes.
we have created this thing called Mass Stay Here. And it's to create jobs for students in Massachusetts so they don't leave the state and they work in that state. So it kind of leaves little room for unemployment. And it's been working because we're the first state that's gotten out of the recession, statistically based on 2010. So would you suggest something for every state to have similar?
I don't know I'm not going to be able to comment on that, and I don't know the ins and outs of it. I'm always for state governments trying to encourage their young population. Where are you from in Massachusetts? Yeah, where?
Worcester.
I'm from Bridgewater. All right, cool. I don't know the deets of that at all. I'm obviously, like I just said, it's always good to keep people. I don't know if Massachusetts is the first to get out of the recession. Well, it's a global issue. I mean, people are buying goods all over the place there, and being paid from places that aren't necessarily based out of Massachusetts. So that's always a very broad economic question, sort of statement. But yeah.
My question is for both of you. Some political analysts and commentators have said that, even though neither side would like to admit it, the Tea Party and Occupy Wall Street had the same fundamental reasons for protesting, which was ending government's protectionism of banks, the Federal Reserve for being basically an instrument which in the past 2 years has lent out $15 trillion on low interest loans, which has devalued the dollar, and the other one is the government picking favorites against the people. To both of you, how do you respond to the critique that the Tea Party and Occupy Wall Street might be, at its core, although they have different end goals, more similar than most people would like, most of them would like to believe?
I can definitely see that. I think they're like binary stars. They both are.
I don't know astronomy, so I don't know what that means.
It's the gravitational pull, they connected to each other. And they both are against the government favoring the big wealthy people and the big corporations. We have, well, I have a problem with a lot of the OWS means, but whatever. They have the very different end games. Their beginning game might have been similar, but Occupy Wall Street wants the government to get really involved. Tea Party wants no government to get involved ever. So, I mean, they are connected in that they hate that we bailed out the banks, which was ridiculous. And but they're not really going to ever forge a alliance, I don't think.
My qualm isn't so much of the bank bailouts, because in some respects, we could have really ruined the entire financial system could have collapsed under us. Then we would have been 15 times. The problem I have with it is the way it was administered. It was absolutely No, it's just a really bad way to administer it. CEOs that ran their banks or companies into the ground jumped out with golden parachutes, with these big bonuses and fat checks in their pocket. That was purely the government's bad oversight. Again, Washington, not Wall Street. I mean, I'm sure the CEO of a lot of those banks were pretty pumped up when they just got a blank check from the government and they said, "We trust you to, just do what you need to do."
So,
So what I'm saying is, like those are pure examples of greed that happened on the bank side. My point is that everybody's angry at the way a lot of things went down, but the point of the Tea Party was the government just needs to get out of our lives, get out of the small business owner's pocket, get out of the stop, lower our corporate tax rate, get rid of our capital gains tax, do things that incentivize people to purchase and grow.
I don't think that we need the government to get out of it like the Tea Party wants, though. For an economic model, I think that the United States might want to adapt. It would be the budget that George Osborne put forward in the United Kingdom, which it increased the taxes on the wealthy so that they paid a fair share of their income while also cutting the corporate tax.
Let me just propose. Hold on a second. Let me just do one quick thing. Again, I'm going to propose this question to you. What is a fair tax rate for people earning $200,000 or more? What's a fair tax rate?
I think we should go back up to the rate that it was under President Clinton. I think that was 39%.
It was 37. Okay, it was I believe 30.
I'm
not. If it was 37. It's
I'm not calling for Eisenhower numbers.
Well, no. What I'm saying is, so how much money did you just make there? A 2% change in income tax bump. How much did you make?
Well,
it's like you have a big snow pile and you're trying to scoop it out with a teaspoon.
But I think it would also, we have seen under President Clinton, who was the best president since Roosevelt, that I worked for him, I can say that, that the economy boomed while that tax rate was high.
There was something called the tech bubble. The technology.
And we've also, an economist under President Reagan has compared tax rates in all rich nations since 1979, from 1979 to now, and there's absolutely no correlation between low tax rates and economic growth. That's, hey, Reagan economist.
I just wanted to get both of your reactions to the news today that the economy grew in the third quarter by a much larger percentage, 2.5%, and how do you think that will influence the Occupy Wall Street movement?
I don't think it will.
I think they're so I don't like. I really have a cynical view of them, so I'm probably a bad person to ask because I do think if you were to go up to these people and the majority, the large majority, there's some smart people there, I'm sure. I know there are, but I don't know if their grasp on the financial markets and how things work is often that tight.
Well, you can say about the Tea Party too. You could go up to
possibly, but they have a lot more base of.
We could go up to them and ask them if they want the government to get their hands off their Medicare, and they don't know what government services they love. I was in a counter thing against the Tea Party group when Michelle Bachmann came to my town. I almost died. And when they were standing there yelling about the government, bad government, blah, 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 I asked them, well, are you sending back your Social Security checks? Are you sending back your...
that's kind of ridiculous.
If you need to be a purist, though,
that's not anything.
Yeah.
Who doesn't?
Me.
The conversation after this event is going well. Let's
Occupy Wall Street, I hope, will be a force for good. I hope that, like the Tea Party, they're able to get politicians to co-opt the movement so that we can see a government that protects the working class instead of the upper class. I hope that some of their goals that they set out, even though TW doesn't think they have any, will increase the tax rate on the wealthy so that they're paying an actual fair share, which will, I think, help the government grow. It will definitely help the government grow, but I think it will help the economy grow. And I think it's a great thing because we need a movement on the left that's a grassroots movement on the left like we have in the conservative.
Well, much like the left, it's run very poorly. But I want to say also, we've had this debate now for however many minutes, and I've still yet to hear one thing they want to have happen. I can tell you right now what I want to happen. Get rid of Dodd-Frank. Get rid of every regulation that's been passed on the private industry since Obama took office. Cut tax rates across the board. Actually, I'm not even a big income tax guy, so I don't even know why I'm like sitting here like saying, hey, we should do this and that. I want a fair tax. I don't even think, I think just like the court ruled in 1853, I think it's unconstitutional to tax income. But that aside, we need fundamental change to empower the entrepreneur, to empower the private sector worker, and get the government back on their side and out of their pockets. And yeah, I mean, no one liked TARP and the way it was administered. That's pretty common ground. But at the same time, to go picket Jamie Dimon's house is disgraceful, or Rupert Murdoch, as if he had anything to do with the crash and the implosion of the housing industry. It just shows the level of ignorance of those folks. Thanks.
This was a very exciting evening. Let's thank all the debaters.
All right, guys. Thanks a lot for coming out. Really appreciate it. Next time this happens, let's hope we fill every seat, all right? Oh, and John Stossel will be here, when is that, next Thursday?
November 10th.
November 10th. It's on November 10th. All right, John Stossel.